Hello and welcome to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Rick, how are you?
Unbelievable, man. If I told you, everyone would get jealous.
Well, Rick, we have our amazing Dutch holiday tomorrow, King's Day. It's the King's birthday here. And you were telling me about it's a special time in your calendar. It's the NFL draft.
Yeah, it's draft week, and
Draft.
you have all the pundits out there commenting and oohing and eyeing. Apparently, it's a huge event in Detroit. Huge street parties in various places. I have to admit, I don't follow the draft that closely, but I thought it was very interesting. And for those of you who are NFL fans, by the way, I'm much more of a college football fan. But apparently, even Bill Belichick was uh, talkative. Like Bill Belichick as a commentator uh, on the draft on ESPN, he was talkative. Like, who knew?
Wow.
He was in a suit. He was in a tie. He didn't have his, sawed-off hoodie on. He looked like a human being, and he was yakking away, being friendly. He smiled even. He even smiled like, good God. So, that's a major event when you get Bill Belichick talking as part of the media and smiling. Like, goodness gracious. Huge
Amazing.
event. We should have a party for the king, for like the king's birthday, for Bill Belichick smiling and talking. Anyhow,
That's
yeah.
it. Nice. Yeah, and of course this lends itself to risk management because we love sports analogies. We've done a few on this podcast already to Formula One.
And it's also recruiting season. It's kind of the second recruiting season as students are graduating. So, we talked about something similar back in October when the first recruiting season for risk managers was coming about.
Yeah.
Now we've got the second recruiting season.
Exactly. Yeah. And to draw that analogy out a little bit, you tell me that during the combine,
Yeah,
there are all kinds of physical tests and mental tests done
yeah,
on
yeah.
the candidates to see if they're up to scratch and prove their mettle. I know you mentioned the 40-yard dash,
Yeah.
feats of strength, feats of speed, all kinds of stuff that show that they will be good football players in the future and hopefully good teammates as well. So I think what we're going to do today is talk about the combine for risk managers.
Yeah.
What would we put if we were made the king for a day and ran the combine however we wanted? What tests would we put them through to find out who the top pick of risk managers is? So
Yeah.
you want to go first, Rick?
Yeah, I'll go first. I would put them through the sell me a pen question. I don't know if it's a test per se, but how persuasive can you be in selling a pen? And so to switch it up, maybe perhaps I would have a bunch of 6-year-olds and they would have to convince the 6-year-olds to eat broccoli or something. But basically, what I would like to test is their selling skills and their persuasion skills. Because I believe that that is something that in your team of risk managers is you need the selling slash marketing slash persuasion skills. And I don't mean by persuasion, I don't mean trickery skills, but the selling and communication skills and the marketing and risk management skills are are to me kind of like the quarterback of risk management.
Yeah. Nice. You know what I like about that particular test is a candidate has studied their risk management textbooks and their normal distributions, and then you throw a pencil at them. And it completely takes them out of the context in which they were prepared to be tested. I really like that approach. So I'm going to give you one that I learned at my first job, where I mentored under a colleague, only a little bit older than me, but that taught me a lot of valuable skills. And one of his favorite questions at interviews was, tell me how to tie my shoelaces without looking, without reaching down and touching them. Break it down into simple, explainable steps and tell me how to tie my shoelaces. And I really like this because it's very procedural, right? You, as a risk manager, you need to break things into parts. You need to follow something that's understandable. You need to be able to explain that to somebody else. Um, and also, just as your question does, it is very, it takes somebody out of the context of the risk management interview, and puts them in. I mean, everybody's got shoelaces, everybody's tied them, but how often have you thought about it? How often have you had to explain it to somebody? Probably not very often. So that would be mine.
Now, I just have to add on to this. This has absolutely nothing directly to do with our podcast, but just got to tell you, my dad had several quirks. Okay, my dad was an awesome person, but he had several quirks. And one quirk was that he tied his shoes with one hand.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. He also put on his shoes before he put on his pants, but that's another story. Anyhow, that was why it took me till about grade 3 to learn how to tie my shoes. Anyhow, the second test that I would do is I would time them for how fast they can give me 10 reasons to use value at risk and 10 reasons not to use value at risk. I would time them on their ability to give me the pros and cons of a quantitative issue.
Nice. I like that.
I don't care about the calculation. I care on giving me the pros and cons of the issue.
Yeah. I like that you went to number 10. Give me 10, because I think just about anybody that's been through the PRM, the FRM, the CFA, a master's program, they can give you 3
Yep.
fairly quickly.
That's why I specifically said 10.
I really like that. Yeah.
Because everyone's going to test on 3, and that's what's in every textbook. But if you don't know 10.
Yeah, exactly. What else can you come up with on the spot? I really like that. Okay, for my second one, I would like to see, um, oh, I'm struggling with this one. You know what I would like to do, which I've done in a couple of interviews that I've conducted, but I've never seen done to me. I've never seen somebody put me through this. But bring it in your laptop, fire it up, and build something for me in Excel. So use an index match formula, use a VLOOKUP, explain to me what it's actually doing, how it's working. And I want to do this test because everybody says they're magnificent in Excel. You get a lot of fluff on resumes. And when it comes to something as simple as a VLOOKUP, an index match, another pretty ordinary function in Excel, you see people really struggling with these things. And it's something you should have picked up in school, but oftentimes, classmates share their work, they share the formulas, and you never really pick it up, and you don't know what's going into that formula and why it's spitting out what it's spitting out. So I would like to see how well they use Excel, because it is the most commonly used tool that I've used in risk management. Most people in the office use it. It's easy to transfer to somebody else and show them you're working. So I would go for that.
Again, I'm just going to comment on your thing. If someone puts on their resume that they know Excel, and it turns out that A, they do not have Microsoft certification, and or they do not know VBA, I will immediately rip up the resume into small pieces in front of them.
You'll find it hard to find somebody who knows VBA these days, I think.
The students that come out of my course, they will have one of those two before they put Excel on their resume.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it, the person who puts that they know Excel on their resume without being Microsoft certified and or without knowing VBA, they're also the person who's likely put that they know how to use Gmail on their resume. Like,
yeah.
I mean, really, if
yeah.
you're that hard up for something, I brought this up before. This isn't really a skill, but well, I got to think of a skill. Obviously, we did this beforehand. Another thing that I would give them is a Raymond Smullyan type puzzle. Raymond Smullyan wrote a couple of books, one of which I actually took as part of a philosophy class in my undergraduate called This Book Needs No Title.
Okay.
And so how do you get around the conundrum of that? So I would actually give them a probability problem, a very simple probability problem. I can't think of one at the moment, but one which raises some sort of illogical conundrum or whatnot.
Yeah.
And see how they think their way around it.
I'm going for you, but it's the classical Goldman Sachs question. How many manhole covers are there in New York City?
Yeah, but you see, that's not really a statistical problem.
Yeah.
First off, I love those problems, and absolutely I would put those types of problems into our risk management combine.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm thinking more about the intuition about statistics and probability. Knowing to a textbook standard, statistics and probability is one thing. Understanding statistics and probability is something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And that's what's missing. That's a key skill that I think you need for risk management.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, for my third test, even though I spent a lot of my sporting days playing individual sports, I realized risk management is a team sport in many ways. You don't have all the skills yourself. You need to be able to harness people around you, work well in not just within risk, but also cross-functionally. Anything I've done of value has been with people from outside risk. And I think what's often lacking is some humility in that, to acknowledge that you can make mistakes, you don't know everything, you need help. I'm not quite sure how exactly I would phrase it, but maybe tell me about a mistake you've made and how you had to explain yourself. Like what happened? How did you recover from that? So I would try to get at a time they've made a mistake and they've had to ask for help. And what did they learn from it? How are they going to use that lesson in the future? Something along those lines.
Yeah. For my next skill, I'm going to go to awareness of sociology and cultural anthropology. We had, by the way, one of our readers recommend that I read a book on cultural anthropology, actually two books. And I've got both of the books. I'm halfway through small places, big issues, which I'm absolutely loving. So uh, uh, my brain's really small, so I've forgotten our listener who mentioned it. But I would design a test or a measurement for their awareness of sociological trends and cultural trends. Um, I'm not exactly sure what would be off the top of my head, but something like, 10 years from now, will we, what is one thing that we currently take for granted as a axiomatic in society that 10 years from now we think will be completely absurd or foolish, or 20 years or whatever, perhaps something along those lines, and see what their response is. And also that would just uh, uh, to not only see whether or not they're aware of current cultural trends or current cultural happenings, but that they can also extrapolate that into a trend, which I believe is a key skill for a risk manager.
I like it. Yeah, okay, you've made me change my mind on what I want my last test to be. Uh, and it's so I like old novels. I really enjoy 18th, 19th century novels. I'm reading one by the French author Honor de Balzac, probably butchered the pronunciation. All about Parisian society and how married ladies used to take on younger gentlemen to mentor them into society, and all the cunning and wile and games that were played within elite Parisian society. It's fascinating. Also, the dowry system. I didn't realize 19th century France had a dowry system. I mean, that's not that long ago. So to tack on to your question, I would want to know what's the oldest novel that they've ever read about, a past period, and what did they get out of it? What can they tell me? What was different about society then and now? You've spoken often about sociology. I think to go with that, history and literature are fascinating ways to get to understand lessons, trends, that things have not always been the way they are. A lot of our systems today are, very recent, and it's good to put that longer term perspective in the practice of risk management. So I think, Rick, that was my last one. I'll be fascinated to actually hear if people if readers would take these questions and actually answer some of them. That'd be very interesting. Do you want to give any more?
I think that we would have exhausted any a potential recruit by this stage of the game.
They would have
So
changed their
anything
mind.
farther would be nothing but a test of stamina.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, I mean, that is a test in itself. If there's one left standing, you've got a winner.
There you go.
Anyway, all right, Rick. Well, this has been fun.
Yep.
Yeah, enjoy the draft. I will be dressed up in bright orange tomorrow and saying happy birthday to the king.
Enjoy your festivities. Have fun.
All
Have a
right.
good week, everyone.
Bye,
Have fun.
everybody.